What a snake bit show this was. I'm John Retlin with a retro review of TNA Bound for Glory 2011. I recently retro reviewed Bound for Glory 2006, which was a pretty good show with a few dips, a couple matches that could have either been on Impact, or in the case of Eric Young versus Larry Zbyszko, not on the card at all, but it was what it was. That show was miles better than this one. Now, there was some good talent on this show, and some good potential matches, and some really good stuff, but nothing quite fired like it should have. What should have been a great show just ended up being decent. And that's the thing, if you look at the lineup here, with the exception of Sting versus Hogan, don't worry, I'll get to that, this could have been a pretty damn good show, even with a couple matches that were kind of just overbooked. Unfortunately, so many of the matches were overbooked and sloppy, and some matches went on way too long. Some matches didn't have the right finish. They didn't crown Bobby Roode as the world champion at the end of the night, and even though he would get the title a couple weeks later, yes, they built up his reign properly after that, but they stalled his momentum, and it took a few months to get any of it back. So they were in Philly, and I don't know the name of the arena, but it was a pretty good-sized crowd until you saw the side where the camera was shooting from. There was almost nobody there outside of the first few front rows. Now, I know that, many companies don't always sell out an arena. Don't get me wrong. WWE was not selling out all their arenas for Raw, SmackDown, stuff like that at this time. But this is when TNA was spending boatloads of money to go out on the road, to take Impact on the road, take their pay-per-views all out on the road. They had Hogan and Bischoff trying to create WCW 2.0, and Dixie being a goddamn idiot, and one of the worst people to ever run a wrestling company. She was fucking rotten. And this show, I wanted to like it so much, but I remember being kind of disappointed when I ordered it on pay-per-view, and it just was a fucking mess from the word go. Some bright spots, but fucking hell. So Taz and Tenay on commentary. I always liked Tenay and Don West, but Taz was fine. We get Brian Kendrick as the Wizard of Odd. I don't know what the fuck his outfit was supposed to be. It's like he's a weird genie. Versus Austin Aries, X Division Championship, and it was fine. The crowd loved Aries. The match was good for what it was. The exchanges were fine, but there were a few close near falls. There was a super sliced bread for 2, and then a brainbuster for 3. And, Aries did hit a cool dive, cool suicide dive through the ropes, like I think through the first and second rope. Very impressive move by a guy that's pretty much an idiot outside the goddamn ring, but really good in the ring. This was fine, but it wasn't up to snuff with a lot of X Division Championship matches, even though the work rate was good for what it was. We then get Karen Jarrett, known dumb bitch that slept her way to get where she was, and that's not going to be the only time I use that line, just letting you know, because there are some on this show that did that. Because Karen Jarrett, one of the biggest embarrassments ever involved in wrestling, really only got there because of who she was married to. She was married to Kurt, and she was married to Jeff, and they made that into a storyline, and that was a fucking terrible idea. And she was upset at Tracy. Tracy had kind of been her bitch, basically, and Tracy was, playing around with her kids, entertaining Karen's kids, the many kids that she did when she basically spread them for, Kurt and then Jeff and probably the entire goddamn locker room. And look, Karen had no fucking charisma at all. It's one thing for me to just get out here and shout on video, or any wrestling fan to shout out on a YouTube channel. But when you are on a nationwide broadcast, or in the case of this, a pay-per-view broadcast, and you have the charisma of a dead whale, that's not good. And Tracy cannot leave the room unless Karen's in danger. Karen's also going to be the referee here. And was upset that Tracy didn't cover up her boobs, because Tracy was always doing the Tracy bounce, the Bentley bounce, that kind of stuff. Oh, show's not doing good. And then we get Jerry Lynn versus RVD, and I like Jerry Lynn. I like RVD as far as their rivalry. Here's the thing. This was 11 years after a lot of their 12 years after many other classics in ECW. That's not to say this was a bad match, but Jerry Lynn was clearly wiped out by a lot of injuries, and RVD, sorry to say, couldn't really be bothered to give a damn at this point in his first TNA run. And then he came back for another run and brought whatever the fuck Katie Forbes is to the goddamn program. Thanks for that. Fucking hell, set women's wrestling back just by having whatever that Barbie gutter you-know-what is on there. God damn it. Anyway, this match is Full Metal Mayhem. The weapon shots were good. Some of the moves were fine. The pace was actually pretty good as far as the exchanges and the counters and stuff like that for the very beginning. The thing is, Jerry Lynn was wiped out very quickly afterwards. And that's not his fault. Injuries and cardio issues will happen when you've been wrestling for about 20 fucking years, and you'd retire a few years after this. And there were ECW chants because, of course, where they're in Philly. Of course, you're going to get ECW chants, especially with two guys they had made a big mark in that company, especially when a lot of people were leaving that company and they were tearing it up there. And they were. Their series of matches in 99 were fucking incredible. They absolutely deserve the credit that they, got and then some for what they did for that promotion. They were spot best, but they were really good. We got ladders, a chair, we got a Van Terminator through the, hitting a ladder into Jerry Lynn and RVD1. This wasn't a great match. It just didn't quite fire, which is going to happen. And then we get Dixie showing up. She's going to see Sting versus Hogan. And it's pretty bad when I think Hogan's the second least likable person there. Dixie's the least likable person that is. Samoa Joe versus Crimson versus Matt Morgan. This is when they were trying to give Crimson an undefeated streak, and it worked about as well as you expect. It did not work well at all, because Crimson just got fucking destroyed. He got destroyed by the crowd. And he wasn't bad in the ring. He was just green, and they were pushing him too soon. And he ends up hitting a spear on Joe and gets victory. Matt Morgan's upset, but they had an unlikely alliance and everything. Matt Morgan should have been used better in TNA. I'll say that much. But yeah, Joe got cheered every time he got in moves, and that was about it, because there wasn't much to it. What also didn't have much to it was Bully Ray versus Mr. Anderson. Yeah, I got this cool shirt when, I think years and years ago when I bought it, when Anderson was still part of the company. I've had the shirt for a while. Really nice shirt. Falls Count Anywhere match. They used weapons. They went all over. They set up tables. They went to the backstage area. Both men got a little bit of blood on them. They used the mic stand, the mic where, it drops down, the old boxing mic where Bully did something, Bully, from this, Hell's Kitchen, and then Mr. Anderson does this, and they battle back and forth with the mic. They battle backstage. We do a guardrail spot, which was stupid. We do a guardrail spot, but it's not the end. And then we do the bubble bomb through the table, which is not the end, after Mr. Anderson had gone onto the guardrail. And then we get a mic check into the barricade. And then that's a 2 count. We get a trash can to the head. Then we get a mic check. We get I Am the Table, where he does a Kenton bomb, but doesn't bash the table. I mean, he doesn't want to hurt Bully, but it's like he just grazed him. It really wasn't all that good. And then we get a mic check into the table to break it for 3. Yep, that's it right there. Not off to a great start so far. We're halfway through the card. We then get Bischoff on Bischoff action. Gross. Jackson James, actually Garrett Bischoff, Eric Bischoff's son, he says, I've got you covered. And, make sure he calls the match down the middle, or make sure that Hogan wins. Call it down the middle, but don't call it down the middle. And then says, Eric says to Garrett, it's a big match, man. That's the worst superhero name ever. We then get Velvet Sky versus Madison Rayne versus Mickie James versus Winter for the Knockouts Championship. Karen Jarrett as the referee. Angelina Love was also in the corner of Winter. Because of the whole thing where Winter had these spoopy powers and broke up the beautiful people, and now Angelina Love was under her spell. I'm going to go on the record and say that I like Winter. I think Winter is very underappreciated in WWE and also in Impact. I think she's a very good performer. Yeah, she also is striking, absolutely goddamn striking and beautiful, but I liked her style, and I thought she brought something new to the table, or at least something unique. Velvet Sky is one of the biggest you-know-whats ever in wrestling. She slept her fucking way to the goddamn top. She slept her way to the top. She did. Chris Sabin, Bully Ray. Tell me how somebody could get that much worse in the ring and then somehow stay in the company. Like, fucking hell. That was fucking goddamn stupid. What the actual shit was this goddamn... This is so fucking goddamn stupid. So fucking stupid that Velvet Sky was ever allowed in the ring. Madison Rayne was fine. I feel bad for her being married to Josh Matthews, especially considering she's the one that wears the pants in that relationship. But, because Josh Matthews is a fucking little ballless bitch. But Mickie James, great. Mickie James is fucking fantastic. What the fuck is going on here, though? Why is there not like a 3-way here? Why is Velvet Sky here? Velvet Sky's here because apparently she was a babyface. But this match was bad. This was really bad. Velvet Sky was bloody fucking rotten and not good at all. And Velvet was the worst worker here. I mean, if Karen wasn't in the ring, Karen fucking ruined the whole goddamn thing. She got blood mist in the face, like that's the first time Karen's ever taken it in the face on camera or otherwise. And then Tracy's here, because she was in, Karen was in danger and Velvet hit the Velvet Buster, the X Factor, whatever the fuck it is. 1, 2, 3, there we go. Hooray! We get a new champion, and let's move on from this fucking shit. Kazarian interviewed about Rude getting a shot. He's happy for his friend. He's not happy that 2 of his friends, Styles and Daniels, are going to be in an I Quit match. And, we're getting the I Quit match here. And I wanted to like this. I did not hate this match. I want to make it clear. I did not hate this match. But this match really had a lot of issues because it just seemed to get going. It had some personal stuff, some good strikes, submissions, everything. We got a toolbox out. Daniel's trying to throw a wrench into Styles' plans with a literal wrench. And then also use a screwdriver trying to stab him. Stabbings do not equate to wrestling. Though I'm not going to tell Kish and Liger that. Remember when Liger did that and tried to stab Minoru Suzuki? That was pretty fun. Maybe not fun for Suzuki or anybody that was around there because you wouldn't want to piss off Liger in that stage. But we get the screwdriver spot. We get some more. Daniels puts a chair on Styles and says, I'm not gonna say the words, but I'll tell your wife that your last words were, I love you. And then Styles gets fired up. Styles also having breast cancer awareness stuff on his tights. Very nice move. I believe October is breast cancer awareness month. Except for Susan G. Scamming. They can go fuck themselves. Cancer's a bitch, but they're a scamming, organization. And he just ends up beating the shit out of him, and then he's going with the screwdriver. And it's kind of like, the end of JBL, John Cena, Judgment Day. I quit match. I quit. Don't hurt me, man. And then Styles gets laid out on the stage, and Dan's like, he never beat me, which was kind of nice, but this almost made the match feel not good. Like, it almost made it feel like it just shouldn't have mattered. It was kind of ridiculous. I don't fucking get it. So then we get Jarrett and Jeff Hardy having words in a pull-apart brawl. Jarrett said earlier, it's like, Nero, I'm calling you out, bitch. Nobody wants you here. To be fair, this is shortly after Jeff Hardy got brought back after the motherfucking stupid Victory Road 2011 fiasco. I may do a retro review of that for a 10-year anniversary next year. I'm just doing this stuff just for fun. I wanted to pick some Bound for Glories that I had in my collection and just review them. But yeah, they have pull-aparts. Not as effective as the Angle Joe pull-apart that they had before. D'Lo was there. Fucking D'Lo to ruin it. Shout out TNA Creative. Figured you'd like that. Sting versus Hogan for Control of the Company. This is one of the most overbooked nonsense matches I've seen in a while. Hogan had multiple back surgeries. Couldn't fucking move. Sting was not the performer he was even 3 years prior, or even 2 years prior, because he was checked out by this point. And it was a stupid storyline. Flair was involved. Dixie's in the front row. You got Jackson James, Garrett Bischoff. He's there. And it's overbooked stuff. They're using a spike to bust each other open because Garrett can't call the finish. He can't call it until Hogan's going to get the victory, but Hogan's clearly not going to win. It was abhorrent. It was a bunch of bullshit, like the no-selling. Hogan couldn't take any bumps. He couldn't take anything to his back because he was fucking hurt. And, whatever. It's karma for all the bullshit he did and all the people he buried and the fact he used, didn't apologize for ever being racist and trying to change. No, just be careful what you say on camera. Yeah, fuck you, Hogan. This is 4 years before that got revealed, but still, well, just under 4 years. But still, fucking ridiculous. Yeah, he gets the Scorpion Deathlock on him, despite the fact Flair is in there and all this stuff, and we get the tap out. He's like, well, I can't call it. Okay, I'll call it. And Hogan loses. And then Sting wins, so Control of the Company goes back to Dixie Carter. Well, actually, Sting wins Control of the Company, much like he did in WCW when he won Control of the Company and then gave it back to the WCW Championship Committee because they did such a great job running it before that they gave it, I believe, to Flair and well, maybe I'm confusing the timeline, but they gave it to people, and then Bischoff wasn't running it, but then Flair and Piper fought for Control of the Company sometime later, and the whole Control of the Company thing never works out so well for wrestling companies, does it? But then Flair and Bully and Gunner, the now Jackson Riker, emphasis on Reich with how he feels, piece of shit, deserves every bit of ridicule he gets, and Scott Steiner, and then Eric Bischoff, and the Sun stops Eric and then gets hit with the chair. And then Sting's crawling to him, crawling to Hogan. Hulk, help me, Spock, help me. And he's getting the shit beat out of him. And then Hogan hulks up, and then they beat the shit out of everybody, beat the shit out of Eric, and this meant nothing. This was terrible. This made their Starrcade 97 match look awesome by comparison. And that match was anything but awesome. It was overbooked nonsense. It was fucking shit. This match was fucking shit. Rude versus Angle, TNA World Title. Good match. Angle shouldn't have won. He used the ropes to get the victory. It was a sloppy finish, and Rude should have won. If Rude had won here, then they could have done a switch to James Storm, and it still would have meant something, and then Rude could have won it back, but Rude would have had his moment. Or they could have had James Storm win it, sometime at Lockdown, and you could have had something cool happen there, but it was what it was. Yeah, they just kind of booked themselves into a corner here in the match. I don't know, it just didn't really mean anything to me. it was very flat because the fans knew that Rude got screwed. You know, of course, Canadians never get screwed in matches, especially championship matches. But this could have ended a whole lot better. It wasn't obviously the worst Bound for Glory, but it was very snake bit. Anyway, agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.